you are going to play great StarCraft if you are as good as someone as GIDRA is.
That's right. Let's see if the German Zerg can take him down, of course. In the bottom left position of Expedition Lost, we have Root Gaming's GIDRA. Coming off of a second place finish at Gfinity Spring, and his opponent in the northeast, the German Zerg from Team Liquid, it's TLO.
Funny how GIDRA just came off that, second place finish in England, as I believe that the only tournament that TLO ever won internationally offline was in England as well, a long, long time ago, which was still in Wings of Liberty. This suddenly popped into my mind. I think he defeated Show back then, the now pretty famous Hearthstone player in the final. That's ancient history for you, but yeah, both players having some success on the other side of the river.
I like that you mentioned Hydra's just chill.
No, I should say, it's not really a river.
I do like you mentioning Hydra's chill attitude, though, because I got to hang out with him in London last week, and he was just super cool. He was with Root Revolution, who is just one of the managers who came by, and
he's also a really good player, by the way, Revolution.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you ran into him on ladder, but
I've hit him once or twice.
He has stolen my ladder points, Nate.
Yeah, but Hydra's just so relaxed, man. He's I like that you brought up this, like, getting in with the American culture. It's like, let's get burgers and fries. He was checking out all that English food. It's like, oh, I just like to walk around. Don't really worry. Don't sweat it too much. And he took some really good series off of very big players like Fantasy. He actually defeated Bunny in that tournament. And as well as taking out Rogue, another Kespa Zerg player before making it to that grand final.
Now, of course, it's always very hard to catch everything of a StarCraft event. And if you guys missed TLO yesterday, his post-game interview, he said, well, I just hope I get a Zerg in the quarterfinals. Give me a Zerg, give me anyone, make it live for all I care, and I think I will do fine. Well, he got GIDRA. Now, earlier this morning, I did meet him. He's like, well, I did want a Zerg, and I'm happy that I got a Zerg. He's like, but I obviously would have rather had Kane or Snoot than GIDRA. He's like, I'm very well aware of the fact that this is going to be very difficult for me. GIDRA, on the end, I wasn't too familiar with his ZVZ, Nate, so I asked around a little bit, but what close friends have told me is that his ZVZ is very good, very solid, and that he can almost do anything. But every now and then he does cut a couple corners here and there, likes to take later gases, likes to take gasless sometimes for a little bit, so there are definitely perhaps minor windows of opportunities for TLO to exploit, but overall GIDRA is damn solid in this matchup.
Yeah, TLO opening with the gas doesn't mean he has to be aggressive, but it at least gives him the opportunity if he sees one of these things that he might have prepared for,
a big link flute or something.
Yeah, exactly. Because if he goes for something like what Fenner was talking about, which kind of rang true with a little bit of what I was hearing and what I remember seeing GIDRA do at Gfinity, if he plays a lead gas style and he makes himself vulnerable, that is an opportunity for TLO. Since GIDRA is, well, we already talked about how he's one of the fastest players in the tournament, the highest APM.
Actually, the fastest.
He's the fastest player right now in WCS, and those mechanics, he's not going to make mistakes as far as building units or getting supply blocked. He's going to be on top of his game 100%. So TLO, he needs to make some magic happen if he wants to beat this guy.
Well, so far in game number 1, TLO is going to have that quicker link speed. Doesn't necessarily mean he can do a whole lot with it, unless he's going to go crazy and make a ridiculous amount of links. But Expedition Lost is not really the hardest map out there to get a wall up, and the ramp is relatively close to the natural. So if you put a couple of queens on that ramp and then you get a spine crawler, you'll be fine, and you should be able to get ahead as long as you save that hatch. So I don't think that TLO is going to go too crazy just yet in game number 1.
Well, really fast evolution chamber for TLO. So what he could be trying to do with this is, we've seen a couple of styles where some Zerg players will go for a fast Carapace. He could go for a really fast +1 attack for Roaches, and that's what it's going to be. So what we could be seeing is just a really, really fast Roach push. If you have the +1 attack, your Roaches 2-shot lings,
Did he cancel
and they do a lot less damage to your opponent as well. And
he canceled Zergling speed, by the way.
Ah, he's pulling a Violet here.
Yeah. This is going to make it possible for TLO to go up to layer a little bit quicker. GIDRA probably saw that spawning pool wiggle a little bit before. Actually, I'm not sure if he ever actually saw that. He's never seen the spawning pool, and he never really saw the extractor either. So TLO maybe just made the link speed just in case. Thought he wanted to maybe do something with it, but after spotting what was happening on the other side of the map, he's like, you know what? I'm just going to cancel it. I'm going to go up to layer a little bit quicker and get roach speed quicker. And with that +1 and my roach speed, I may be able to do something. But TLO, if he has ambitions to go up to 3 bases right now, Nate, he's going to have to think twice about morphing in his hatchery, because there's no way he's going to be able to defend his hatchery against all these Zerglings.
There's nothing but drones and queens on the map for TLO. Hydra has 24 lings, 10 more on the way. He sees these lings coming across the map. He did not wall off his natural, so the drones are going to come here and try to just block this ramp as much as they can. The Zerglings are actually squeezing through. He's able to get a nice bit of surface area against the queen. The drones are going to have to be used to fight, and suddenly Hydra is able to pick off a significant number of the workers of TLO. Over 13 drones and both queens, Roddy. A disastrous start for the German Zerg.
Yeah, it's not even over yet. I mean, one of the roaches got picked off immediately. The second roach is taking a lot of damage as well. A few more drones will go down. I think eventually TLO will stabilize over here, but not before losing 18 drones. Well, I was wrong about the hatchery, Nate, but what happened was even much, much worse for TLO than just losing that hatchery.
I think TLO would have preferred if he dived on top of that third base. He just taps out. Hydra takes game number 1. And, you know, for Hydra, the mind games that TLO were playing a bit there with that
TLO out-mind gamed himself.
Yeah, I mean, he hit the evolution chamber, so it's like, okay, that's kind of cute. You're going for a fast +1, but that means you don't have a wall. So those queens have to run all the way back, and then the drones trying to move those through. He knew that the queens would have died against that many lings since his roaches weren't out, so he had to leave the drones there. The drones actually pushed the queens apart once he held position them, so the lings were able to get in and did even more damage, and that was just... I think you said it best, Kev might have out-mind gamed himself.
Yep, TLO maybe overthinking things a little bit in game number 1, an expedition loss, and Hydra making a nice amount of links. It's obviously an investment, but you know, worst comes to worst, what would have happened there for Hydra is that he cancels that hatchery and he sees exactly what's going on the other side of the map, and then he has a little bit of map control as well with these Zerglings, so he can still run around. He can still counterattack with them as well if TLO has any ambitions to move out with his +1 roaches or the minor roach advantage that he would have created for himself. So it's not like those links would have ever been useless, but well, this was the absolute best case scenario for Hydra. He just straight up wins game number 1.
Yep, very nice position to be in. He also did a really good job of pushing away the overlords outside of his natural ramp so that TLO would have the minimum amount of time to respond. We're going on to Overgrowth for map number 2, another 2-player map, reasonably short rush distance, which means overlords can also scout pretty quickly. You don't worry as much about anything crazy, at least not being able to spot it. We've seen some early pools, but I don't think either one of these guys is going to risk it on this big a stage.
No, I think this is going to be a very straight-up game. I definitely think we're going to see a lot of roaches over here. Most likely Hydra will once again delay his gas a tiny bit. Then he can still make a couple of Zerglings, but I don't think he's going to make as many as he did on Expedition Lost. It's also a little bit easier, I would say, to defend 3 bases over here on Overgrowth than it is on Expedition. So we'll see, but I expect this to be a long, drawn-out game where TLO is just eventually going to have to outmaneuver Hydra. Then again, do you really want to play a 25-minute game against someone who's as fast as Hydra is?
Yeah, he's a very difficult player to outpace, guys. We are loaded in to map number 2 here in our first quarterfinal of the World Championship Series, Season 1 Premier League in the northeast of Overgrowth. We have the Blue Zerg player up 1-0. He's Root Gaming's Hydra.
And over here on the left bottom side of the map, we have the Wounded Wunsch himself. He's representing Team Liquid. It's TLO. Unfortunate start of the series for him, Nate. In moments like this, I would say it's the best of 5. You just forget about it immediately. Don't drive yourself crazy. Don't second guess yourself. I'd say out of all the matchups in the game, maybe PvP is even more extreme, but ZVZ is also a matchup where you just can't second guess yourself. If you have a build in mind, if you feel like it's the right thing to do, you have to be very decisive. You're gonna have to just go with it. You know, never just like start driving yourself insane, because there are so many things you could potentially worry about. Like every 30 seconds there is something that could potentially happen in this matchup. Doesn't mean it's always the right thing to do, or that it will always happen, because most of the time it won't happen. But you still gotta believe in everything that you had, you know, thought out for yourself before the series even started.
Yeah, you have to remain as focused as possible. And in a situation like this, you're going up against a Hydra who is just pure confidence. You know, he came into this tournament. A lot of people, as soon as he announced he was playing in WCS, everybody was just like, okay, well, he's immediately the favorite.
Congratulations, Root Gaming.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, easily the best pickup that they've been able to make, as he has got this far. And when I was sitting next to Hydra during the group drawing process last night, or at least when we were drawing the bracket, and I was just like, is there anyone that you don't want to play? He's like, no, not really worried. You know, the second place finish out of that group, for Polt, ended up making Hydra's life a bit easier because Polt now has to eliminate 4GG or the other way around. So he'll have a lot of time since they're on opposite sides of the bracket to prepare for the most likely opponent in the grand final.
But I even feel that ZVT is a matchup that's just made for Hydra. Of course, he dropped that series in the round of 32, but once again, that was a single best of 3. It was bound to happen once. Maybe a little bit of pressure did come to the party on that moment because he was sitting in that studio in Southern California. He's like, man, this is why I moved to the other side of the Pacific. There I go again. And there's just a lot that comes into his mind. Maybe he drove himself a little nuts, but he bounced back so strong, even in that round of 32. 2-0, did advance, and ever since then he's just been like an absolute man on fire. So I think right now Hydra's mind is in such a good place. I think he's very happy. I think he's very pleased. Of course, he wants to deliver. He wants to perform over here, and he won't be happy or satisfied with anything else than tournament victory today.
Yeah, and Hydra, he's come in with the expectation to win it. I can at the very least tell you that, Kev.
And you just feel it as well, like if you're around him. But I really don't feel like it's a show either. It's not an act. I truly feel that he's pretty damn calm. Maybe in the final, if he gets there, he's going to be a little nervous. But I feel up to this point, he's really not overthinking stuff or, driving himself insane, putting extra pressure. I think he's just like, life must be good being Hydra when you're that confident. It kind of reminds me a little bit of something that Bomber had at a certain period last year, around him. Just like this aura of confidence that if you're in his presence, you feel a little bit better too.
Yeah, he's got it all together, man. That's the most cool thing about him. In this game, both players did open up with a gas. Hydra has not opted to go for any type of early Ling play. In fact, he's throwing up a spine crawler, so I'm getting the impression that we might see him just try to go for that lair as fast as he feels safe doing. But TLO, he's got that Ling speed coming closer and closer to finishing. He's building 10 Lings now, but that's not really a crazy amount since he has nothing on the board.
No, he's going to have to make a lot more lengths if he truly wants to break Hydra over here. And I don't think that he wants to do it because TLO is now, of course, a little bit worried. So he's like, do I really want to be that guy that makes 28 or 32 Zerglings in game number 2? And then if it doesn't work, I just look silly. I'm trying to break a ram that's or a wall that's maybe unbreakable. TLO, of course, doesn't know what we know. He's about to sort of put it together, I think, as soon as he spots this wall. But then I think it's almost too late. So, the right thing is indeed going up to 3 bases, which is exactly what he's doing on the south side of this map. Eventually, he's going to morph his own Overlord into an Overseer and spot what's going on in the main base of Hydra. He would have loved to have a couple of Zerglings into his main base, but that's just not going to happen anymore.
And this is a really nicely timed lair for Hydra. All things
Very
considered, taking the third base a bit later than TLO still won't be too terrible for him since TLO, he starts up his +1 attack. He still has not begun his own lair, and he got the Baneling Nest, which I have to imagine is defensive. There's the Roach Horn, and he's going to be just playing off of a very late tech. Like, unless he's just going for like a 3-base Roach Ling Bane, he actually should really be thinking about that lair soon.
I mean, this is a scenario that we've seen a couple of times though, right? When one Zerg goes up to speed roaches very quickly and then just kind of tries to outmaneuver the opponent who doesn't have speed roaches, but that opponent will have a better economy. So TLO is going to have a slightly harder position getting his units in place as he does start his layer right now. But he's going to have a better economy, and speed roaches are awesome and all, but it doesn't mean that they're stronger than regular roaches in a straight up fight. So as long as TLO is going to have his units in a good position, he should be able to create a small economic advantage for himself.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. The Overlords are also able now to see for TLO that Hydra's taken this third base. He'd like to use those Zerglings with speed to delay this if at all possible, but he's already moved some Queens and Roaches there, so he really shouldn't be able to knock this down. And if you look at what the lair has given Hydra, it's a much faster Roach speed. So even though +1 attack will finish at a similar time for them, Hydra can more easily position his Roaches, and also without that speed, TLO can't get aggressive on the map to try to punish this third.
TLO is definitely not going to be able to get aggressive. He's just going to have to sit it out. Hydra is actually making a lot of drones. Like, I love the way, I don't really mind the way that TLO is opened. Love is a big word. But I like the way that he has opened. But I don't think that he has truly capitalized on the advantage that he has created for himself. I guess he was kind of afraid of that speed roach attack, and he felt like he just needed to start producing roaches as soon as possible. That pick off on the Queen, that's awesome, but now when the Zerglings retreated, he also saw all those drones being transferred, and he probably looked at that as like, man, that's a whole lot of drones.
Yeah. Hydra asking for a pause here, as just need to make sure everything is okay, but pretty solid start to game number 2.
I kind of like it so far for Hydra. You know, TLO, he had a quicker third hatchery, but he's only been producing slow roaches out of it. And Hydra made a couple of roaches, but after that he went full-on drone production. So by the moment that his third base finishes up, he's going to be able to almost saturate it properly immediately, which, you know, will completely nullify the economic advantage that TLO was supposed to have because of that slightly quicker hatchery.
Yeah, it's interesting how these builds always work out, and you kind of look at it, it's usually like in Zerg versus Zerg, no matter what way both players open, you can generally have some sort of advantage. Like when you compare anything like a Speedling opening versus a Gasless opening, the Speedling player can usually take a third base more safely since they have that map control, whereas, you know, they're just a little bit further behind on tech compared to the guy who goes for two base.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Hydra, of course, is working off a double evolution chamber over here as well. And, you know, ZVZ, if you're both making roaches, upgrades are pretty damn important.
Yep. It could come in actually really, really big play later on in this map when you consider that TLO, like he was getting the +1 attack in that moment, but Hydra starting as +2. He is getting the Carapace as well. So just having that one upgrade lead in Roach versus Roach is pretty significant. It makes it very difficult to take those fights, and we definitely can't dismiss that he's gotten this position where he didn't have to make those resource investments either into heavy lings or Baneling Nest or even that early ling speed.
I mean, when we are analyzing the state of the game right now, and this is always a kind of nice because there is a small pause, so that it truly gives us all the time in the world to just collect all the data that we have at hand. Like TLO has more units, but he doesn't have roach speed, so it's very unlikely that he's going to be able to do something with these units, while Hydra has a better economy. And as long as your opponent is not going to attack you, that means that in a minute from now on, or let's say 2.5 to 3 minutes, Hydra should have a season ball, I mean, like quite a bit bigger than the one of TLO. And, you know, ZVZ is all about making as few units as possible while saturating your bases and only making units where you truly need them. And I feel that TLO has produced a few too many units that he didn't really need. And maybe Hydra like scared him a little, maybe Hydra freaked him out a little bit. But overall, I think that Hydra has a good approach and is in a very comfortable position over here. Better economy, better units, and it's very, very unlikely that he's about to be attacked because, you know, TLO doesn't have roach speed yet, and it's pretty far ways off because he didn't even start it.
Yeah, it's the biggest weakness of this whole position for him. As you mentioned, we were basically just seeing the lair finish up, and this doesn't mean that I don't think like this really opens up any aggressive opportunities for Hydra because the roach speed is mostly all about being able to defend it or at least catch units out. He could try to slip a few by for harass, but even that is still really asking for it. I feel like it just gives him this nice safety blanket where he could even think about potential third bases.
I would just say like ride out the upgrade advantage that he's currently working on. You know, he's an upgrade ahead. He might be able to get 2 upgrades ahead if TLO never decides to get a second evolution chamber. And right now he's on a slightly better economy. So if he just produces units, keep track on what TLO is doing. If TLO throws in a Hydralisk, then I would almost say do exactly the same, or maybe try to power through one time with just roaches. But after that, just try to mimic your opponent. If you have a better economy and better upgrades, nothing should be going wrong for you.
Yeah, that's right. It looks like we are just about ready to go back into this game. As we have resumed in TLO, we see a couple lings just kind of skirting across the map, checking for a 4th base. Maybe he can try to tag this 3rd. The roaches are busy on those rocks. Maybe he can snipe a drone or 2.
Oh, that would
Everything
be very nice.
would be nice.
Yep, he got that queen before, so that should have slowed down Hydra a tiny bit. Almost got a drone here for his efforts, but it's very hard to do any economic damage in this matchup if there is not a big fight happening somewhere, if there's not like armies just rotating around the map. If that's the only thing that Hydra has to worry about, well, he will take care of it.
Yeah, and you especially consider that the queens are always going to be at those bases, and the spine crawler for Hydra that he built in the beginning of the game to be defensive
that actually
is going to be very, very tricky.
That's a very quick 4th hatchery.
Yeah, I think Hydra has just realized that, well,
yeah,
I'm trying to ride out whatever advantage I have. Like, TLO's roach speed is close to finishing up, but if TLO were to push the envelope too soon, those, actually, I guess he does have a small window before +2 attack, because even though TLO is also going for +2, Hydra is going to have his +2 faster, but he also has the Carapace upgrade.
Yep. I mean, Hydra will always have an upgrade advantage in this game, or at least for the next couple of minutes. It does seem that TLO just wants to go absolutely ham on roach production, and he does still have that minor army advantage. Roach speed has finished up. We're looking at 36 against 38 roaches, actually. Well, so a couple of roach advantage for TLO, but is that enough to walk up a ramp? Well, I guess for now it is, because Hydra is slightly intimidated by this roach force from TLO, and he's going to be able to get a cancel on that 4th base. Hydra didn't even contest it. Interesting.
I mean, he's got 19 roaches on the production tab. He just wants the rest of these bad boys to finish before he takes a fight. Otherwise, TLO, the majority of his supply isn't on the map. He's just going to take it to gold base. He says, okay,
good move, though,
don't want to take this. Actually, TLO, I just noticed his +2 attack upgrade was contaminated a little bit, so he's about a minute behind now. And Hydra is actually going to try to capitalize on this opportunity as his +2 completes. He's ahead 2 whole upgrades right now against the little one. This could get very tricky for the German Zerg soon now that Hydra is approaching max.
I mean, upgrades are super important in roach fights, but at the end of the day, positioning really matters as well. If 20 of the 50 roaches from Hydra won't be able to fight, then upgrades should not be able to save him. So as long as TLO is able to keep track of that army and keep his roaches in a good position and force Hydra to walk into a concave, he might be able to buy enough time for himself or just force a very unfavorable engagement for Hydra.
Oh, he throws out another contaminate on that +2.
Oh, that's
TLO.
so annoying.
TLO cannot get that upgrade. I really like the diligence with moving the Overseer over there.
It's a really underestimated spell still, years and years into StarCraft 2. Hydra is going to try to go for it. Has found a small opening over here. It looks like TLO has a ridiculous amount of roaches over here though. I love how Flo even has to zoom out because there are just too many roaches on our screen, Nathaniel.
It's a massive line of roaches, but those upgrades are really doing well for Hydra as he continues to press into this. The spread was good for both players, but Hydra, I mean, his roaches are just trading better, man.
Yeah, his roaches are stronger, his roaches are better. I even felt he mismicroed a little bit over there. I guess he tried to reposition units, but they were walking for a little too long. But in the end of the day, the supply tells the tale of this game. 170 against 116. Just a couple of minor things that Hydra did so well in this game. Making drones at the right moment, getting upgrades on the right moment, and dropping those super key contaminates. Like, why is this spell not being used in every single game we ever see?
I don't know, man. This was a really well played game by Hydra, delaying those upgrades, having the Carapace upgrade advantage, and now he's actually going to have that +2.
Bundling claws.
Yeah, I like this. Inch and forward just a little bit. Of course, those roaches heal so much, and with this, I think Hydra's going to be able to push in and potentially end this game. TLO is being forced back towards his natural. Hydra cleans up and takes this map, now sitting 2-0 comfortably here.
And not doing anything too crazy, not getting lucky in any sort of form. He's just like playing it out the way that he loves to approach this matchup. Made a couple of roaches early on when TLO was going up to 3 bases before he did. Forced TLO to make a couple of units very quickly, and behind that Hydra just squeezed out quite a few drones, created an economic advantage for himself. Of course, had a very good economy from the get-go because he never opened up with link speed, so he didn't morph that drone into the extractor very early on and didn't have 3 drones mining gas, so he already was a little bit ahead. That's why he was able to afford 2 evolution chambers. He's just playing very solid.
Yeah, it's been a pretty rough series so far from TLO. Let's hear what the guys at the desk had to say about the series so far.
Thank you very much, boys. Let's slow the pace of this down a little bit because this is starting to look like a bit of a mess here for TLO. Let's talk a little bit about this. What does he have to do to stop the bleeding? One more game and he's just out already.
The thing is, he's playing well. He's prepared well. That second game there, he opened with the perfect opener. Like I said, you're going to have to abuse Hydra in the early game to get that lead when he hasn't got the bailing list. What he did, he built Zerglings to pressure there, which means that he could get his third base up a lot faster. Then he had drones on his third base before the roach push came from Hydra. He had the economy lead, but then Hydra, he just played fast. He got the best position. He slowed down the upgrades with the Contaminate. That was the main thing that game. Really good play by Hydra there. And then he got the upgrade timing in there.
I agree with Fenner.
Perfect.
Cheers, Todd.
But the thing is that even if it hadn't have been the upgrade that had been the pivotal moment there, you know, Contaminate is a spell in Zerg vs Zerg that I think triumphs over every single matchup. I love Contaminate in this matchup. I'm going to go on about it time and time again. It's that even if you don't get the upgrade, you can still go to the hatcheries and actually deny the reproduction of roaches, and then obviously Hydra's going to be in a really good spot there as well. So people need to keep using this.
For TLO to come back here, does he have to try something crazy like an all-in? The thing is also, like, when you're down 0-2, everybody's going to expect that out of you. What do you think, Fenner?
I think it's hard for him just to go for an all-in now. Like I said, there are some holes in the Hydra's early game with that late bailing nest, so if he has prepared an all-in to try and hit that timing before the bailing nest is up, then he can definitely go for it. But I don't think switching it up and just going for a build that he's not ready with is a good way for TLO to go. He needs to prepare those builds. I really like the way he played game 2. He just needs to play a little bit faster, polish it up a bit.
So this is salvageable. I know.
He's not doing...
It's a long way to go, but...
It's a long way to go. He's got the right mindset. It's just hard to keep up with the pace of Hydra. He's just so fast.
I like the difference between ZVZ and PvP, you know, like I'm imagining, you know, PvP happening here, and like the solution would never be like, you gotta play faster, man. It would be like, you need to roll the dice a little bit better. But you, imagine you were TLO's coach and you stepped in the booth, now you're like, you gotta play faster if you wanna beat this guy. It's like,
it's like, I can't play faster. I can't, my hands won't let me. This is a problem.
I had wrist problems before, I don't need them again.
Yeah, and then if that doesn't happen, then it's going to be 3-0, and this is looking as we expected. We always knew that TLO was going to have a difficult battle against Hydra, but this is looking a little bit more one-sided than we initially thought, especially considering that TLO wanted Zerg versus Zerg. He really needs to tap into what he's done already, but we'll see if he can do that. Guys, we are going to go straight back towards Game 3 and the casters. Can TLO repair the damage?
That's a tough question, Apollo. Thanks, guys, over at the desk. And I don't know, Roddy, if he's going to be able to just play faster. That's a tough request. At this point, his wrists are basically going to be lighting on fire.
You remember the interview that Maru gave at the Intex Remasters? He's like, well, I think I can do it as long as my hands don't betray me. Well, maybe that's what's going on for TLO over here. I'm a little bit caught off guard as well, Nate, because it feels like we're just sitting down and it almost feels like I haven't even casted a single game yet. Like, this is normally where we can talk all about all the beautiful things in life, rainbows, butterflies, maybe some Battletoads or Super Nintendo games, but, you know, it's already 2-0 in this first quarterfinals. Hydra is just all over this series, and I got a little bit carried away as well in the hype that Dario gave us, you know, the big talks, and give me a ZVZ, bring on live for all I care. So I really thought that we're going to see a slugfest over here, but so far there's only one man, and that's this man that's dictating this series.
That's right. This guy just been in absolute control so far today. He's our Blue Zerg player in the top position from Root Gaming. It's Hydra.
On the 9 o'clock position of Catalina, we have the man who has been feeling a little under the weather, but hopefully he can bounce back in this series. It's the one and only TLO. There was a period in 2014 that TLO was extremely consistent. Maybe it was late 2013, early 2014, something like that. And he placed top 8 in multiple tournaments in a row. It was just like, he was always phenomenal up to the point where there was a quarterfinal and then he lost in the quarterfinal. But there was like this 6-month period where TLO was more consistent than he's ever been in his career. But then that kind of faded away again a little bit as well. I definitely think that this top 8 finish came as a surprise, because let's not forget, he didn't just get seeded into WCS, he had to qualify for WCS.
Yeah.
And TLO did not manage to qualify the first 6 times, I believe, in the regular qualifiers. And then there was a last chance qualifier for all the people who gathered the most amount of, let's say, imaginary points in these qualifiers that got so close to qualifying over and over again but didn't make it. Dario was one of them. He was one of the 16 players that got very close but didn't qualify. And then in the last chance qualifier, he finally qualified for WCS Premier League Season 1. In the round of 32, he was pretty damn solid, despite the fact that he dropped the first series against Calazur, but you know, we're all a big fan of our little Brazilian Terran, so there's no shame in that. The round of 16, I think TLO was awesome. Now he's here, round of 8. I think it's an amazing achievement. It's been an amazing journey for him so far, but it would still leave a bad taste in his mouth if he would go out 0-3 over here.
Yeah, I think at this point, TLO might even just be telling himself, like, I just don't want to go out like this. Like, this series might not be salvageable, but I want to take it. I want to at least take a map, and, you know, just show the best games that I possibly can. But Hydra, he only came here for one reason, Roddy. He came here to kick ass and win WCS. And that's pretty much what he's been doing.
Go back to America and order lots and lots of burgers and fries.
It's been a while since I've been in America. I might have to go up with Hydra and join him after this. It's been a very, very good tournament for him. He's got to have a nice week or so, I guess, before he goes right back into Season 2.
I think this is already the biggest paycheck Hydra has ever had in StarCraft 2, correct? Yeah, it has to be.
I mean,
even if it's the quarterfinal, it's like $8,000. That's so much money.
Yeah, I think he got like somewhat close to that off of his Battlegrounds performance last year. I don't know.
No, that was a minor qualifier event, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, there was a little bit. There was a decent bit of money on the line for those.
True, but definitely not 8,000.
No.
This is definitely the biggest paycheck that he's had in StarCraft 2 so far. So that must also be kind of relaxed, you know, that even if he wouldn't get what he came for here, he's already been doing so well. This almost makes the move worth it already so far. But of course, you know, everybody has dreams and ambitions. Yeah. Zerg speed is a lot quicker this game, right? For Hydra than it normally is. And he's making quite a few Zerglings already. TLO, on the other hand, is trying to cut a corner or two by just skipping his extractor. He has not...
No, he's got a Baneling nest, but he doesn't have speed.
you think that maybe he wants to just go Banes into lair, or what's going on over here?
We saw a little bit of this yesterday, but honestly, it seemed like more of a defensive move in this position.
But he could have even started that already before.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly not entirely sure. Maybe he wanted to just see if he could cut that corner and go straight to a lair. He's got the Banelings on the way right now, but a lot of Lings are going to come across the map. Hydra is basically turning this into I'm going to control my Blings. You're going to try to kill my Lings with your Banelings, and if you don't, the game will be over.
Yeah, TLO is 8 workers ahead, so that means even losing a few drones is okay. The first Baneling connection is massive, though, for Dario. Oh, the second one is great, too, and now he still has those 3 queens as well. I actually think that TLO is going to be more than fine over here. That's a lot of Zerglings that Hydra just lost.
And that's a pretty well-defended push so far. A couple of these Lings are going to try to come in around and swarm one of the queens. Maybe he gets a queen for all of this. No, barely okay, he does.
The Baneling, it's gonna know it's one more.
Good cancel, actually. He manages to get on top of the next queen, and suddenly TLO realizes that Hydra made a lot more Lings than he was expecting. He's actually starting to fight against drones inside of TLO's natural. Next queen falls, and a couple of Lings running into that main base. There's still a lot of Lings crossing the map, and Hydra during all this is somehow also building drones.
It's very frustrating for TLO that he ended up losing those queens, because it didn't really look like it. He had a lot of Zerglings on the way. They were very close to hatching, just a little too late. And let's not forget about that one Baneling that was the chosen one. He was destined for greatness, Nate, but he didn't achieve his goals. As he got picked off right before he morphed into a Bane. So that was kind of nice for Hydra, because the first part of that push was a disaster.
Yeah, TLO's trying to go for a counter push now, bringing his Lings up towards Hydra's base. Hydra's willing to trade away from the Banelings as much as he can, but Hydra still has a greater amount of army supply. It really comes down to the Baneling connection for TLO, but there's that Spinal Crawler too.
If I was Dario, I would just try to keep a couple of Zerglings alive, because if he ends up losing all of his Zerglings over here, Nate, then Hydra can march across the map again and put on some pressure.
I think Hydra's already considering that, as he has a ton more Lings in production, and the Zerglings of TLO have all but been cleaned up, and there's barely any left now.
Yep, Hydra probably looked at that and he's like, hey, I just picked off 2 queens and now you just sacrificed the Zerglings on my side of the map. Well, even if you had any dreams or ambitions of droning up, I'm going to prevent that, and maybe even more. Maybe I can just finish the game over here.
Yeah, I think Hydra wouldn't mind a quick out on this map if he could force it. TLO trying to spread these Banelings out. This opens up the door for his Lings to get on top of his Zerglings. And
TLO's in trouble, man.
Oh, that one Baneling so close to Dream. But he's going to lose his drones. Baneling actually kind of went back and forth for too long, and TLO's losing a lot of his workers. His next queen gets picked off. More Lings coming inside of this base, and at the same time, TLO no longer minding in his natural, losing even more drones in this position. Hydra's just continuing to dominate in this series.
Yeah, Hydra is all over this game as well so far. Picked off 10 drones in this little counterattack. Of course, now TLO is the one that has a minor lane advantage, but let's not forget, Hydra has never lost any queens. Hydra already has a Spine Crawl in his natural, so it's very hard to accomplish a whole lot if you are TLO right now with just Zerglings. Like, I don't think he's going to be able to do a lot over here, and if he ends up losing those Lings, the same thing is going to happen again. Like, Hydra will just counter.
This is like his last desperate push, and Hydra's like, I'm actually going to come out here and force you to for maybe either build more Lings or cancel some of your Banelings, and he has more Zerglings actually here, so it really comes down once again to those Banes.
I mean, great way of Hydra to switch things up in game number 2. Oh, a lot of Banes actually used on the Spine Crawl over there. That was very exposed. I guess he just didn't want it to be transfused. He might get a couple of great connections over here. He got so close to getting to that little drone train, but he missed the exit.
Oh, Baneling got a big connection for TLO and Hydra's base. He's got his Lings on top of Hydra's drones, but Hydra, with enough Zerglings in production, is able to hold on for now.
Still a few more Zerglings on the way for TLO, and let's not forget the Spine Crawler is not there anymore. The queens, well, they are just running around. It's frustrating for Hydra that he doesn't have a Crypto connecting his bases, but he doesn't have to worry about that anymore, at least for now.
Yeah, Hydra trying to get control of his ramp once again. These queens moving forward. They have a lot of energy to transfuse each other, but he needs to be very cautious. Not the Banelings.
I feel like TLO is doing exactly what the boys to the desk were talking about. Play faster! And right now he's just like, he's like one of these guys in a really intense movie. You know, he's like, He's like
he's flying off the handle at this point, trying to keep up with Hydra. Hydra, behind all of this, still has maintained just a handful drone lead. He's managed to start up his +1 attack. TLO also at the same time did that, but we do actually have the Roach Horn for both players. Still no lair, though.
That last counterattack by TLO was pretty successful. That definitely kept the dream alive a little bit. A couple of good bailing connections again over here. He's still in this one. They're even on workers. Despite all this has been a very hectic game where Hydra has killed multiple queens, has killed 10 drones as well. And normally in a ZVZ, especially when you go up against someone like Hydra, that's a devastating amount of economic damage. If you take that early on, it's almost game over. But TLO has done a really good job in evening things up.
Now putting up the fight of his life here, trying to keep this series going as much as possible with the Roaches coming out now. That's going to end the Zergling Baneling phase of this game, especially once they get +1 as they two-shot the Zerglings without much effort at all.
I hope that TLO just backs off as soon as he spots all these Roaches.
He's got a lair almost done. So what Hydra actually needs to do is make a big push, because then if he doesn't, TLO gets the tech advantage. He can go for +2 upgrades.
And TLO just needs to buy time for himself. Like,
TLO wants
counter. He just needs to try to counter, keep the Zerglings on this side of the map, maybe wrap around those queens real quick. Hydra, of course, is aware of that. I'm afraid that the link numbers are just not high enough right now for TLO to seriously make Hydra worry about whatever is happening behind his Roach train.
He got massively supply blocked during that fight. He was stuck at 60 for a very, very long time. Just now finishing Overlords and just now trying to build more links, but Hydra shows up. He's like, I've got +1. What's up?
Well, not just that. I've also got 15 Roaches in your natural. That's what's up, Nick.
Yeah, 15 Roaches as strong as this are not going to be easy to stop. In fact, he might even cancel the +1 missile attacks of TLO.
Oh, God.
Oh, yep, denies it. Well, now TLO's Roaches are just worse, and Hydra is getting in here. The drones are pulled, getting on top of all these forces. 15, 20 plus drones dying for TLO as Hydra pushes up this ramp, and GG is called. Hydra will advance to the semifinals of the World Championship Series Premier League Season 1.
Wow, flawless performance over here by Root Gaming's Hydra in the first quarterfinal of WCS Premier League. 3-0 over the German Zerg TLO. Man, he looked very, very solid in this.